The way I understand it, Margie said to Bill Sr., you got to give him a job. And he said, what can he do, basically? Not touching the whiskey, not touching the money, because he doesn't know anything about money. You'll run the marketing department, but I don't believe in marketing or advertising, and your budget's only $1,500 a year.
Yeah, that was a stretch. Well, the first thing he said when I came back, I drove back, and he said, we got to have a meeting. At the time, he had a little airport office, one room. We met in there, and he gave me my job description, and it said, go find customers. And I noticed I was looking, it didn't say anything about helping make the whiskey better. He had that figured out. He knew I wouldn't be able to make much of a contribution in that area. And how in the hell was I going to go find customers? Lord, I was the engineer and the lawyer and had never even worked in a retail store. So that was going to be quite a trick. So the very first thing we did was to sit down and hammer out a mission. And that mission was to be the first craft bourbon to achieve significant international acclaim. Here we are, we got a few customers in Kentucky. We're talking about substantial international acclaim. Outside Kentucky, nobody cared anything about bourbon, or certainly had not made the association of bourbon and connoisseurship being thoughts that could connect in the same sentence.
This was a brand built by, I guess, relationship marketing is the best term. And Bill Jr. was the original brand ambassador. His dad didn't believe in marketing. He didn't believe in invading people's airspace or bothering them. So Bill ran the marketing department. He sat at the bars in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky every night, and as people would walk up, he would buy them drinks and he would talk to them about Maker's Mark.
Yeah, it was not pretty. Dad and I both came to the conclusion that I needed somebody to teach me how to do my job, and it wasn't going to be him. So we actually did a search of agencies. Now, decided Doe Anderson was the right agency. We're working together, and it didn't feel right. And there wasn't anything personal. It was just, there wasn't any magic being made. And he said, I've got this young shit ass in the company that drives everybody crazy, but he's the best idea guy we've ever had. That was Jim Lindsay.
Maker's Mark was basically Billy's father and our chairman sitting together in a room with a typewriter and a pipe, smoking their pipes and talking about the hunker and hankering society of whiskey.
First exercise was to keep doing what Dad was doing it on a bigger scale, which meant we had to get really important third-party endorsements. We knew that it needed to be Time Magazine, Fortune, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, so we knew the likelihood of that wasn't very great. And I said, Dad, I've got a fraternity brother of mine in town, a fella that had gone to journalism school, and I really want you to meet him. Big lie. He didn't like marketers, he didn't like marketing, and he didn't like the press. He saw what I'd done to him. He was a gentleman. He wasn't going to kill me until after the guy was gone, which was okay, and he loved him. Ended up going back and filing a report that ended up in center column on the front page. That's when I understood for the first time that Dad wasn't with us, but he wasn't against us. Because I told him there was going to be this really neat article about him on the front page of the Journal, and he said, good, let's get 3 or 4 copies. And I said, no, let's get 2 new phone lines set up and let you and I commit to answering letters. So he agreed. I think he thought there'd be 5 letters coming in. It was like 35,000. Let's talk back to the ones that are looking for a bottle that can't find it. So he said, fine, just don't screw up the product.
When the story broke in the Wall Street Journal in 1980 that these craftsmen were making this very special whiskey in the hills of Kentucky and so forth, then we started responding to our customers. We got all these letters like, how can I find your whiskey? Because we didn't have any distribution. No money and no distribution. And so we would use the letters in our advertising because they were talking about the whiskey. And we would say, here's what you have to do, where you have to go. That whole thing evolved into a style that I will call America's most searched for whiskey. And we started to have more and more money because we were selling more and more whiskey, and so we were able to do some things at least regionally.
We did all we could to play with people because they were friends. Okay, the only people we were talking to, we had really tight blinders on, talking to people who had already expressed an interest. That was even the outdoor boards. So we played games with them. We made it hard for them to figure out what the hell we were doing. It was on purpose. I mean, we did stuff that experts came back and said, you're wasting your money. Nobody will know what it is. We did one after Enron blew up. This was our first big investment in Times Square. Big sign, Maker's Mark. Disappears faster than a Big 5 accounting firm. We lost a few customers over that. There was the one in not too long ago, before I retired, where we had a tanker, a large tanker parked along the road in Los Angeles with a bottle poured into the tanker. And it was in a real tanker. It caused 3 wrecks. They made it take a stand. 2 lifelike. Created a tremendous amount of conversation. So it's not what you tell people, it's what you do to activate their imagination. And Lindsay was pretty good at that.
We realized that our consumers knew exactly what we were talking about. So it didn't really matter. It freed us up to be a lot more entertaining and a lot more interesting. Yeah, I gotta tell you, we drank a lot of whiskey and we laughed a lot too. It was great times.